Well, hello everybody, I'm Mariette Cozette, your friendly neighborhood TV personality. Welcome to the Mariette Cozette Show. Today's guest is very special. She's an extremely talented artist and registered nurse, so actively exercising both sides of the brain. Stay tuned for that interview, and of course, for any further information about the show, visit mariattecozette.com. Stay with us. Hey everyone, you're back and you are tuned in to the Mariette Cozette Show. Super stoked for my guest today, the very lovely Mariette Tachdjian, who is a registered nurse and a fantastic artist. Hello and welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, first of all, for being here and then draping my set with your beautiful art, which we're going to talk about. But first and foremost, let's go over your educational and professional background in healthcare.
Well, I am a master's prepared registered nurse, which means I got licensed in nursing and completed a bachelor's degree and then moved on to do a master's, and the master's was focused on healthcare management,
right,
or healthcare administration actually, which I got at UCLA. And soon after that, I had worked a lot of hospital positions in various units as bedside nursing.
Right.
And then with the master's, I was able to do a lot more with hospital management teams and projects and also consulting. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, kudos to you.
Thank you.
Because nurses are so important in healthcare, very, very important. So
Thanks.
You're amazing. Okay, so now let's talk creative. I want to know when you first developed this passion for painting, and then of course your inspiration, your grandfather, who incidentally is named Art.
That's right.
Yes, let's talk about that.
So painting, every child is given tools to play as, primary school. So in fact, as soon as I learned to read and write, I started sketching, and that was always my outlet, really.
Right.
So it really stemmed from sketching. I was always fascinated with the human figure and faces and bodies. So I was always into the sketching and which lent itself to other painting.
Yeah,
so.
I can't draw a lick, like at all. Everyone's like, oh, you're a creative person, you must be able to draw. Not at all. My drawings look like 5-year-old drawings. Anyways, moving on. So what is your conceptualization process?
Conceptualization meaning how do I create my
like how do you
work?
Come up with what are you inspired by?
Yes.
What's your creative process?
So I'm inspired by feelings, emotions, and states of mind, and that is really wrapped up in the figure. So it's figurative art, which is what I do, and when I create, I am very much inspired by everything from vintage beauty and standards of beauty along, through the years, through the ages, all the way to deeper issues concerning women. And so sometimes I might use a live model, and sometimes I just use photo references as a loose basis for what I want to create. And everything kind of rolls out from there. And so
everything takes over.
Everything.
Yeah. So with that said, actually, a lot of your pieces exude female empowerment. And so where does that stem from?
So it's interesting, Maria, because I didn't set out to make specifically feminine focused art, which is what I call my art. I want to say a lot of that was driven or motivated from the loss of my mom and my grandmother in close proximity to each other. So they were, in a sense, models for me, life models. And with the loss of them, it started to inform my art a bit more about the power of women, about what we're capable of doing, and how we hold ourselves back sometimes from that, our true essence.
Right.
So from there came a lot of the female energy, what informs my art, what truly drives these pieces. But I have to back up one step back and say that when I turned 30, I was introduced to the art of flamenco, which is a Spanish gypsy art form, yes. So some people may or may not be familiar with it, but it is a very strong female dance.
Right.
And it's not just the dance, though. It's the music, it's the story, it's culture.
Right.
But with flamenco, I, for the next 7 years, found myself obsessed with this art form because it truly unleashed. It unleashed everything that we want to be as women,
right.
and sometimes are not able to speak. So with that, after a period of time, strangely, but not so strangely, flamenco led me back to painting. So it was a very interesting circle that happened. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so you've traveled quite a bit. Where is it that you stumbled upon flamenco? And I know that you avidly go listen to live music here too, which I admire about you. Yeah, you're a lover of all arts. So where was it that you stumbled upon flamenco?
Well, funny enough, it was right here in LA.
Perfect. I love it. I love it. Some local flamenco.
Yes, and actually a guitarist befriended me and introduced me to the local scene, which a lot of people don't know that there exists a flamenco scene here in Los Angeles. But soon after, I got to visit Spain, and I trained and I did intensives there, dance intensives and courses.
Really?
My hair used to be much longer.
Wow,
and
that's
I
awesome.
put on big earrings and costumes. And I've always been about the visual presentation of these art forms, but there's something much, much deeper, and it's storytelling, and it's female, and it's strength, and it's very passionate.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so
That's
that led me
beautiful.
back to painting at a certain time when I realized that because we use our hands a lot in the expression of dance,
right?
And I knew I still wanted that continuum of my hands to create, using my hands to actually create again, which was the back to visual art.
Right,
so, yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
So it's always interesting for me and a lot of people what the creator's space looks like, you know?
Yes.
So what are the different elements in your studio?
So my studio is, I have a home-based studio,
Awesome.
And I get a lot of natural light, and ironically, I do a lot of my painting at night. But I share my studio with my 2 cats named Kiki and Freddie.
Aww.
And Kiki is, I call them my muses, because Kiki is, to me, kind of like a reincarnation of Kiki de Montparnasse, who was a model for Picasso and Modigliani, and all those famous folks in the 20s and 30s. And she was an actual figure living in Paris. So I've recreated her into my little black cat who inspires me to create more. She's got her own Instagram, too. And my space is just very simple, and I lay out everything. I like a little bit of organized chaos, as you might imagine, a lot of artists, you know. And I just put my first step forward, and it just goes from there. So.
And when do you find yourself turning to, you know, creating art? Is it like after a long day of work? Is it, I don't know, do you allocate particular time to it?
So this is interesting because it is part of the how much can you really put after a full-time job, you know, because we're all sucked into that lifestyle, especially here in the big city. But I've been reading a great book named, it's called The War of Art, by Stephen Pressfield, I think, is the author. And he discusses a lot of what we do, kind of sabotaging our time, sabotaging ourselves, and all the excuses for not to create. So for me, this was kind of a groundbreaking sort of book for me, and getting back to a focused time. And I'm not the most disciplined person at all, but I really enjoy the process once you begin, and just to see where it goes. So I do devote the time, I will say, almost every night after work. So that has to happen for me to continue also growing as an artist.
Yeah, absolutely. And really as a professional, I mean, how can someone not have, you know, this outlet?
Yes.
You can't go on with life like that. So let's talk about these amazing pieces, the one behind me, these 2. Tell me about them.
Well, first, this one in the middle is, you know, I titled it Empowered, yet it can be anything. It's true. It speaks to the sacrifice and maybe the struggle and the burdens that women share and hold by virtue of just being assigned the female sex, you know. And I think it's there's just so many layers. We could talk and talk and talk about this, but when I choose to do something like this, that's just a little more evocative. The pose, is she dead? Is she alive? Is she just resting? And is that a pregnant belly? Is that a full belly? Is that, you know, there's so much. And I think a lot of artists might also agree that just curves and the figure of a woman is far more interesting than a lot of other subjects. So, but I could call this like the cycle of also empowerment and victimization, and how in our society there's a lot of that going on.
Yes.
Kind of a constant circle. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what about that piece there?
So this one is a little bit more inspired by vintage, kind of the French women in a cafe.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, this was a bit more inspired by kind of like a self-portrait. It's very, very loosely based on an image of me, but I really wanted to do more foreshortening, which is having
I love that you did that.
Yeah, and I like to show hands and I like to show feet whenever I can, just as a representation of our grounded and our energy.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful, and I've seen your other pieces where you've done that, and it's just, it makes it all the more outstanding and just very intriguing, you know? So what about this puppy here?
Sure. What's behind you is kind of a series I started close to the time when I had lost my mom and my grandmother, and the two, you know, women figures in my life. This is called Yin Yang of Women, and I just really, the thought came to me that women have historically been perceived as, you know, both angel and also, I won't use the word.
Maybe seductive.
Yes,
or
yes.
Let's
so,
use that.
A lot of counter energies,
Right.
Light and dark, maternal and also, you know, seductress.
Right.
So the thought came to me that I would make a series called the Yin Yang series of women, and whether the Yin Yang is happening right in, you know, the upper chest area, it's just more symbolism.
It's a very unique piece.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I do notice that it's very different from the other pieces that you've created.
Yes, this is much more kind of abstract, I guess.
Yeah. So where do you envision your art going? I mean, what could we expect from the artist Mariette?
So currently I'm doing a few more what I call commissioned work. So people are interested to do, I do actually do portraiture, by the way. So
beautiful.
Yeah, it's a little different from this style, but I've always been very fascinated by faces and emotional states of mind, and capturing the eyes.
Right.
That's a big thing for me too. So I want to keep growing, and whether that's size of work or just growing as stylistically as an artist. The future is big, you know. I kind of, it's funny for me to say this, but I sort of almost feel like I would like to be kind of like the female Vahe Berberian who really gives so much of himself in various aspects. And you know, whether that's painting or telling stories and writing. And so that's
beautiful.
Kind of where I would like to eventually be. Multimedia. Yeah.
And I know that you mentioned about that painting that it's somewhat of an image of yourself in there. And I must say that you have some self-portraits that are uncanny. And from what I know about creating art, it's hard to do that. It's hard to create a self-portrait. So how did you create those?
Well, to be honest, the self-portrait was directly from the grieving period that when my mother died, I kind of was at a standstill of what is it I want to create. I hadn't really thought out these pieces yet or anything. So I suppose it was a way to document my emotions, and I was working with acrylic much more at the time, and I just did a self, it's a very deep self-analysis,
Yeah.
and I think that is something.
Yeah, it came out really well.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah,
I saw it on your website, which, by the way, please visit mariette-tachdjianart.com, and the same on all social media. I was like, whoa, is this her? It is amazing. Yeah, uncanny, beautifully done.
Thanks.
And so this last question that I ask all my guests is, why do you think it's important for a professional to have a creative outlet? And of course, in your case, artistic talent, and you actively exercise the right side of your brain. But why do you think it's important for professionals to have this creative side of theirs?
So this is a very interesting and important question. And I would say, before even really exploring creativity,
Right.
I really deeply believe that everyone, not just women, men and women, I think we've lost our sense of the authentic self-expression. And if we learn to tap into that first, creativity will follow. And when you are unable to or suppress your voice throughout years, for whatever reason it is, lifestyle, whatever, circumstances life brings you, and you're suppressing your voice, and when that gets turned off, part of you dies, and we don't want that. We want to feel alive and vibrant and joyful.
Right.
And so creativity is the beautiful outcome of when you start using your voice freely and express and find that joy again. But I do believe that that's important, because the right brain don't work on its own, just like the left brain doesn't. They all intermesh. So we want the harmony and balance and have that creative outlet.
Yeah,
absolutely. So
very well said. Creativity is living. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. It was so nice to have you on my show.
Thank you. What a pleasure. What a
pleasure.
Thank
Pleasure
you.
is all
Thank
mine.
you.
Thank you so much. I wish you the very best in all your creative endeavors.
Thanks, Maria.
And once again, to check out any of her beautiful art, of course, like her on Facebook, follow on Instagram, and then also the website mariette-tachdjianart.com, and stay with us for more of the Maria Cozette Show.
To create along with nature. To masterfully blend subtle flavors. To trust time in the making of history. To share everything we are proud of. Ararat, from heart to heart.
Know the Greats, where we spotlight a legend. Oscar Claude Monet was a French painter, a founder of French Impressionist painting, and the most consistent and prolific practitioner of the movement's philosophy of expressing one's perceptions before nature. He first became known locally for his charcoal caricatures. In 1862, Monet became a student of Charles Gleyre in Paris, where he met Renoir, Bazille, and Sisley. Together, they shared new approaches to art, painting the effects of light en plein air with broken color and rapid brushstrokes, in what later came to be known as Impressionism. The first Impressionist exhibition was held in 1874, and the primary purpose of the participants was not so much to promote a new style, but to free themselves from the constraints of the Salon de Paris. Monet's ambition of documenting the French countryside led him to adopt a method of painting the same scene many times in order to capture the changing of light and passing of the seasons. And I quote, "Everyone discusses my art and pretends to understand, as if it were necessary to understand, when it is simply necessary to love." The Art of Giving, where we spotlight a charitable organization. Bridge of Health connects pediatric cancer patients in Armenia with the financial means necessary for optimal care and recovery. Their versatile team of clinical and administrative leaders bridge the gap between the need for recovery and the financial means to achieve it. BOH not only helps children fund their medical expenses, but they also simultaneously work to improve how Armenia provides healthcare from a systematic perspective. They currently support Cancer.am, which is Armenia's main online source for scientific and practical information related to preventative cancer care. BOH sponsors physicians in Armenia to continue their education, one of which is Ruzana Papyan, as she attends Harvard Medical School's High-Impact Cancer Research Program. Most importantly, Bridge of Health is fully setting initiative to the implementation and funding of Armenia's first ever hospital-based cancer registry. I am a proud, longtime supporter of this organization and really encourage all of you to get involved some way or another. Visit bridgeofhealth.org. That's a wrap for the Mariette Cozette Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Much love to my guest today, Mariette Tachdjian. What an inspiring conversation. Beautiful art. Once again, to check out any of her pieces and what she's up to, of course, like her page on Facebook and visit mariettetachdjianart.com. Well, everybody always remember, stay creative. I'm out.